Nation.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 13, printed in Part A of House Report number 118-108, offered by Mr. Joyce of Ohio.
Pursuant to House Resolution 495, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Joyce, and member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chairs recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Joyce.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and may I say you look lovely today. I rise today to offer an amendment to H.R. 277, the REINS Act. My amendment would insert a key provision included in my legislation, the Liberty Act, to ensure that economically significant guidance documents are subject to public notice and comment periods as in much-needed congressional oversight. While agency rules and regulations are subject to congressional oversight, guidance documents are not. As a result, the President can use guidance documents to sidestep congressional review and prevent Americans from weighing in on decisions made by their government. Guidance documents were never intended to be used by presidents to unilaterally enact their agenda. But today, that is precisely what we are seeing. For example, President Biden has attempted to use guidance documents to implement his $450 million or billion-dollar student loan bailout, Medicaid expansion, and to make it easier to deny future natural gas pipelines. As a result, it has become clear that Congress must exert its authority to ensure that guidance documents cannot be used without any review or accountability. My amendment will guarantee just that. But the principle underpinning this amendment is simple, that our government was founded by the people, for the people, and the duly elected representatives must be able to hold the executive branch to account. No matter which party holds the White House, no president, Republican or Democrat, should be able to implement their agenda without first giving the American people the opportunity to weigh in on their agenda. That is why I ask that you support this amendment to strengthen the REINS Act and to provide Washington with a much-needed dose of transparency and accountability to the American people. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio reserve. For what reason the gentleman from New York seeks recognition?
Madam Chair, I claim the time in opposition.
Mr. Nadler from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this amendment amends the definition of rule to include interpretive rules, general statements of policy, and all other guidance documents. But guidance documents from agencies are not given the force of law in court. Expanding this bill to also require any guidance the agency gives to businesses about how the rules will be enforced is a gross expansion of the Congressional Review Act and would ensure that agencies provide less guidance for business, thus creating more uncertainty. More uncertainty in business stifles business. You want to know the environment you're operating in if you're a business person. This amendment is an overstep that would stifle further the work of our agencies and would make it much more difficult to conduct business in this country. I reserve.
Gentleman from New York reserve. Gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Joyce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I thank the ranking member for his reply, and I appreciate his concern. I would simply say this. All of us, regardless of our political affiliation, should be invested in reining in the power of the executive and holding the president accountable to the people. That is not happening in the status quo, which is why my amendment, the underlying bill, is so important. Guidance documents were never intended to allow bureaucrats to make sweeping decisions without any oversight, but that is what they have become. Economically significant guidance documents, like President Biden's student loan bailout, will have major effects on our country and must be subjected to proper oversight. That is what my amendment aims to achieve, a common sense, good governance reform that keeps the American people in control of their government.
Gentleman from Ohio reserve. Yield.
Yield.
Gentleman from Ohio yield. The gentleman from New York.
I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, at the risk of sounding repetitive from what I've said in several other amendments, Congress is not capable of making the judgments, the thousands, millions of judgments on specifics, like how many parts of arsenic per billion in the atmosphere is safe. What should the tolerance of a braking system in the automobile be? How many units of radiation can a person tolerate or is worth risking in an MRI or a CAT scan. That's why Congress has delegated to agencies, which we created, the power to make these decisions, which we are not competent to make. The thousands and thousands of specific decisions on scientific and other questions, mostly scientific questions. The REINS Act is a very bad piece of legislation because it would say that the agencies can't do this, that Congress must do it. And we don't have the capacity, we don't have the time, and we don't have the knowledge. How many people here know how many units of radiation is safe? How many hearings must be conducted for the thousands or even millions of decisions that must be made each year? So the REINS Act is a bad idea. This amendment, in effect, expands the REINS Act to include interpretive rules and general statements of policy, makes it even more impossible. And therefore, it makes a very bad bill worse, and I oppose it and urge its defeat, and I yield back.
The gentleman from New York yields back. The question is on the